So the proposal was put the wind turbines out where it's a little bit in the Dakotas. You know, nobody's out there complaining about it, right? And then just ship the electricity back to Iowa. And that is done. That is done today. But there's only so much transmission line capacity to do that. On a windy day, all power lines coming from the Dakotas are full of electricity, wind power, going east toward Minneapolis and Iowa. Crammed full, you can't get another kilowatt hour. So you have to build a lot of transmission lines from the Dakotas here. And it's harder to build a transmission line than it is to build a wind turbine. People just don't want anything in the backyard, just like a pipeline now. We're finding out how hard it is to build a pipeline. Remember the Dakota access line, and now we have the carbon dioxide pipeline. It's just so hard to do. It's easier just to pay a farmer a pretty good rate for a wind turbine, and he thinks that's a reasonable trade-off. And the county thinks it's a good deal, and so it's easier to go that route rather than build a transmission.
What exactly is the process if you wanted to build a transmission line of North Dakota?
Well, you have to prove it that it's economically to the benefit of the people in Iowa. Because the utility, you have to prove it economically. If this is the best route, people are going to save money in the long run when you build this transmission line. And then you get them to say, okay, then you got to go out to landowners and say, how many of these landowners can I get to voluntarily sign an easement? And there's always some people that don't want to sign, and then eminent domain is used for those last holdouts. If it's an infrastructure project that is a necessity for the country. Electricity is a necessity. Oil pipelines are a necessity. Carbon dioxide pipelines, well, maybe not. So natural gas pipelines are a necessity. So you can use eminent domain to force landowners to sell the property. So that's the process.
Who would finance?
Who would finance it? The work, it would be the utility. Yes, it would be a transmission owner or a utility that would make that investment, all millions and millions of dollars to get that permitting done. And environmental permitting is part of it, yes.
Briefly, how does the electricity get from the wind going around?
Yeah.
Then where does it go? Does it go down the wind shaft,
No.
to a wire, over to a battery?
Yeah. Not a battery, just hooks right up to the grid and it's used instantaneously.
And the grid looks like, what is it?
The grid looks like those transmission lines. You know when you go...
Those great things.
Yep, you know if you go north on Highway 4 from Jefferson, you cross a transmission line. It's got 2 poles, big cross arm, wires hanging out. That's 161,000 volts. That's part of the grid. That's the high voltage grid. We got one right south of Jefferson. You go over the Raccoon River, and there's another transmission line there.
So, here's your window.
Yep.
Is there a wire in that window?
There are no wires in there.
There are. Huh. What? Oh, how does it work?
So, you know, the wind turbine, what it is, it just creates torque, turns a gearbox, speeds up, and turns a generator. A generator is something you turn the shaft,
Okay.
electricity comes out, and you have big fat wires from that generator go down the tower.
And underground.
Yeah, they go underground to a transformer right at the base of the turbine. You may have seen them, they're about 7, 8 feet tall. They're green typically. And that transformer changes from like 600 volts to 34,000 volts. And then 34,000 volts goes underground to the next wind turbine, to the next wind turbine, the next wind turbine, and to a substation. And then there's another big transformer that goes up to 161,000 volts.
So a transforms.
Transformers. That's a good name. That's how it works.
Big transformer, my grand junction is that?
Yeah, big transformer, South Grand Junction, yeah. Yep.
How's it go from 6,000 to 34 volts?
From 600 volts coming down the tower, typically 600 volts to 34,000 transformers. Transformers, a device that's got iron core in it, it's got winding to wire, and windings on this side and Ivory side, and lower fewer number of windings on the lower side. So you have a ratio of 34,600. Whatever that ratio is, like 40 windings on for every winding on this side. There's 40 windings. There's one winding on that. It's all those. You should have known that.
You know why there's no nuclear power in the U.S.?
Nuclear power, sees how steady it is, and it's really gone down. And we have a nuclear power plant in Iowa that the Wayne Arnold Energy Center is retired, high cost. A lot of overhead for running nuclear power, a lot of employees for regulation purposes. Yeah.
I was curious about 20, 30 years ago when wind people were starting to approach farmers to have them get an easement to put this on their land. They could not explain what was going to happen years down the road when they needed repairs, when they needed to be torn down, when the infrastructure would be taken off the land. They couldn't explain that to the farmers. So some of them didn't give permission, didn't buy into it. What's the procedure now for that?
So the question is about some developers years ago, it's in Carroll County, currently you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were reluctant to talk about, well, what's the final fate of this wind farm? How are you going to tear it down? When's it going to come down? You know, and for whatever reason, that developer probably didn't know the lifespan of that wind farm. He didn't know it was going to be there 20 years or 40 or 60 years. He probably didn't know because you just don't know the future. So that's probably one reason. And another reason could have been, I don't know, I'm not sure another reason would be, but when you sign an easement today, it'll say right in there what happens when we tear this down. And for example, on the wind generation that we own, we're setting money aside to decommission the wind turbine. We figure it's going to cost about $200,000 to take a wind turbine down. So we set money aside so that someday we pull the plug, time to retire, take it down, we grind out the concrete down to about 4 foot below ground level, we push that black dirt back over the concrete, and farm over. After 5 or 10 years, you know that. So that's what will happen. The wires, they're down about 5 feet, they'll stay there forever.
But you try to sell it to someone else first.
Well, yeah. Before you take it down, you commission, you say, well, can I sell this? Will somebody buy this before I tear it down? Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll think of that. Yes?
When you build one today, how long do you think it's supposed to last?
Well, Mid-American has a 40-year book life on their turbines. I don't know how long they last. I would guess they could last easily. Like, if you own a Super Ram tractor, built in 1953 or something, how long will it last? The Super Ram I own is still running around in Green County because just keep maintaining it.
Is this all computerized? So is it one company that synchronizes all these windows?
Oh, yes, is this all organized and controlled and computerized? Oh my gosh, that's a whole other 2-hour discussion. Yes, it's fascinating. In fact, and I got one problem, I'd like to do that. For example, in the upper Midwest area, there's a control center in Carmel, Indiana, wherever that is. I don't know where it is. Indianapolis, okay. There's a control center there that monitors what's going on in the whole upper Midwest. Their sole purpose is to keep the lights on a regional basis. Make sure there's enough electric generation to supply all the needs for everybody living in that area. That's the challenge. And regardless of the storms coming through, an ice storm, tornadoes, the wind stops, the sun quits shining, regardless, you got to keep the lights on. That's what that center does. The most sophisticated computers monitoring everything, they know exactly how much wind power is being generated by all the wind farms in the whole upper Midwest. Yeah, big complicated.
That's the business that my current company is that the software to control the wind.
Yep, most people didn't hear, but he sells SCADA, supervisory control data acquisition equipment for monitoring small wind farms, or wind farms in general. So, yes, Chuck?
First comment and question. One of the great lines I heard, it was the first hilltop wind farm, the 7 out there. At St. Joe's Catholic Church in Jefferson, after that, Father Bill Bruner was filling in at St. Joe's Catholic Church in Jefferson right after those were dedicated. And he got up that morning and he said in front of the congregation, he says, I've got a name for that project. I'm going to call it the 7 Prophets, because they signal winds of change blowing through Greene County. So second, my question is, Iowa made a terrific pivot in the 1980s governmentally on this to do the required renewables and incent wind energy. Can you look back, were there 1 or 2 individual policy or government people who were key in making those changes?
Well, your memory is a little better. You're going to have to happen, but there was a Ralph Rosenberg. You ever?
Yes.
He was a legislator, and he eventually went on to form the Iowa Environmental Council because he was always interested in renewable energy and the environment. And there was another guy. I'm trying to think of his name. I can see his face right now. He was Ohio City, started the Iowa Policy Project.
David Osterberg?
David Osterberg.
Yes.
I was his paperboy.
You were away from it.
I delivered to the chicken coop he was living in the back. And this is the
Chicken coop. Do you remember when chicken coop was not just there, the utilities got hold of that chicken coop and here's a radical environmentalist, let's do him in, you know. And he was a proponent for his renewable. He was so far ahead of his time. He was. He just ridiculed and I felt sorry for him. But I got to know him. He was a nice guy, you know. But he's you know how visionaries are sometimes called crackpots, you know, because they're just so way out there, you know. And sometimes what they say comes true, you know. They were right all along, you know. It takes quite a gift to be a visionary. So he was another guy. And then, of course, with Democratic governors, I don't know who was governor at the time of that. Oh, yes, Calder? Okay. So you'd be another one that was proponent. Yes?
I noticed that in California, the blades are very small.
Well, small.
And I've heard that the replaced blades here in Iowa, tractor market. So I don't know why that is and what difference that makes.
Well, yeah, there's a couple things. We found out that the longer the blade you put on, the more area that encompasses and the more energy you can get over the course of the year. So there's incentive to just take your existing winter, don't change anything, but maybe the blade, the hub there. Pull our blades, you get 10 or 15% more energy kilowatt hour over the course of the year. And in some cases, you will also be able to get a tax credit for doing that. So there's a financial incentive to the federal government to do that. What that does is that preserves wind generation and keeps it gives it a second or third life is what that does. And so you'll see a lot of that in Iowa and all our wind farms. They'll put up new blades, new longer blades.
What's the speed of the blades as they're going around?
The tip speed are like really fast. So I guess about 150 mile an hour might be kind of a typical speed out of the tip there. And the key is to make it not whistle. They spend a lot of millions of dollars trying to keep that blade. The faster the blade goes, the more it makes the noise. And to keep the blade noise down. There's just so much engineering that's gone into modern wind turbines. It's just a miracle that thing is whine or whistle going around. It's just a miracle.
You just get used to it.
Yeah, you live pretty close. Joyce lives how far away from two turbines there?
Davis is
Quarter mile away, yeah. And you hear how often?
I don't hear it. It's like a train.
Like a train? Yeah.
I don't hear it.
Okay. Yes, Harold?
The Danes have a saying for that, which is, your own pigs don't speak.
Denmark, your own pigs don't speak. Because in Denmark, it's really promoting the car. You have farmers that have fairly large wind turbine right near their home, you know, close by, or they get together as a cooperative and put up 4 or 5 kids that are on this land. Denmark has just been an absolute leader in renewable energy for the whole world. Yes, sir.
Recently, a wind turbine got on fire.
Got on fire.
And I was wondering, if the fire department went out there, well, obviously, you know, it's worth that high. So what probably occurred, and then how do they do the maintenance? Is that happening out in Indianapolis?
No, the Indianapolis, all it does is it makes sure there's enough wind, there's just enough power on the grid to keep everybody. It doesn't care about the operation of the birds. Nothing to do with it. But the question was about fire. What do you do about a fire in winter? I don't think you can do anything about a fire up there. You just let it burn. You can't get water up there. It's 200 feet high. You can't pump the water there. You can put equipment in the base of the turbine that snuffs